Good evening, and welcome to another duplicitous version of Diatribes from the Voice of Doom. Now here's your derelict and degenerate host, Voice of Doom. Hello. Alright, I've been gone for a while because haven't had a lot to say about anything, but I figured for the sake of my fan I would do a diatribe today. Just comment on a few of the issues that have been cropping up. And I've noticed something that's interesting, extremely interesting. And that's the polar opposites of what's occurred over the last 5 years and how people are clinging desperately to their ideologies and their loyalties to their various factions and parties, and how it's just all not working out for them. But polar opposites. The thing that brought this subject to mind was when I saw Caroline Leavitt do a press conference a couple days ago, 2 or 3, and she was, I won't say she was bouncing off the walls, but she was very manic in her delivery, which was succinct and very clear and very on point, but she was manic. And if you've been on the planet as long as I have, you kind of know when someone might be possibly using artificial stimulants to keep up with what their job description entails. Now, we all know that Orangey is a workaholic. We all know that Orangey functions on very little sleep, because I think that if he thinks he sleeps, he might miss out on something, or miss out on a opportunity to put his 2 cents in. So I think sleep to him is actually a curse, because if he could only be awake 24 hours a day, he could get more done and he would be in the public eye. But what he doesn't understand is that his support group, his administration, his aides and spokespeople do not have the same metabolism that he does. They're not the same people. They might have lives, and they might not be able to keep up, and maybe they might have to use artificial stimulants to just keep up with the program, because it's going so fast. Everything's faster and faster and faster in life, if you notice. Exponentially faster. So technology moves so fast that by the time you catch up with one technology, they've moved on to 10 others. But I noticed Caroline Leavitt, and I noticed a distinct difference between her delivery and her posture, the way she takes control of a press conference, in comparison to her predecessor, who was Jean-Pierre, Karine Jean-Pierre, who was a fumbling, mumbling, bumbling person who had no business being in the position she was in except for DEI, and couldn't keep up, and she had to refer to her notebook, and she'd circle back and everything else, along with Saki before her, who was a little more competent but still had to circle back on most questions because she didn't want to answer them. So I noticed a polar opposite there. Now, where else is there polar opposites? Well, In the first Orangey administration, there were people that hated him and would continue to hate him no matter what he did, and would never give him the benefit of the doubt. And now I'm noticing some things in the media, especially, where some liberals, Bill Maher, or others, and even some of the legal touts who have been Democrats forever and won't change no matter what, are saying, that Orangey has a point. And there was a big hullabaloo from last week when Maher went with Kid Rock or somebody to see Orangey in the Oval Office, and Maher said, look, I'm going to say how it was, and he was a good guy, and we had a good conversation, and he's not the monster that I portrayed him to be all these years. So a lot of liberals are actually coming around to reason. You don't have to like everything a person does. I can name a few things that I don't like about Orangey. I don't like his narcissism, but I also don't like some of his policies. I don't like him clinging on to or promoting this cryptocurrency business, because I think that's all based on nothing. And I don't think that you can promote this cryptocurrency, which has no intrinsic value. You can't create different things that are based on the fact that other people want them, and just base your whole investment on supply and demand of, well, if it becomes popular, then it will go up in value, when it has no intrinsic value behind it. I'm not into this crypto business. And what else don't I like about Orangey? Not a whole lot. He's a little acerbic, but that's beside the point. So you don't have to like everything about a person in order to give him the benefit of the doubt and let him, have a chance to improve this country. That's the problem with the D's, is they don't care about the country at all, not one little bit. They care about winning, and in order to win, then the other side has to lose, and in order for the other side to lose, they have to fail. So all that the D's can hope for right now is that the U.S. of A. goes into the abyss with inflation, possibly an attack, or possibly any other a pandemic or any other thing where they can point the finger at Orangey and say, you see how bad he is? So all they can do is hope for the destruction of America in order to win. And that ain't going to cut it. And people are seeing it. Now, on the other side of the coin, we have goppers in the media who are actually questioning Orangey and saying, I'm not going to support him 100% on everything he does, and that's fine. But they're questioning him on things like tariffs, where, you're just creating trade wars, and then it's going to create higher prices for everybody, and then you go back and say there's going to be a pause on the tariffs, and then the stock market will go up, and then, you're insider trading, all this crap. It's like the stock market goes down 1,000 points now, every other day, and then it goes up 1,000 points. And it's going to get worse. The swings are going to get worse. One day it's going to go down 5,000 points, and then go up 5,000 points, and the only people making money are these people that are buying futures on the S&P, and they're playing the up and down game. Like, I'll bet it goes down tomorrow, so I'll put my money there. I'll bet it goes up the next day, I'll put my money there, and they make billions. Not millions, but billions with their investments, because they play the S&P and the NASDAQ and whatever, and just make bets on which way it's going to go. And with their margins, they make billions. So nobody's getting anything from that. But as far as the tariffs go, all these other countries are doing the exact wrong thing. by trying to retaliate. It's like, well, if you tariff us 75%, we're going to tariff you 100%. To where all these things are just being taxed and tariffed all over the place, trading, when the very simple solution is free trade, no tariffs anywhere. We buy your bananas, you buy our cars, we buy your chips, you buy our whatever America makes, wicker chairs, I don't care. Just free trade. You want to buy American, buy American. You want to buy Cambodian, buy Cambodian. You know, and then everything would be fair, and everything would probably, prices would probably plummet, because you'd have a choice on what product you buy and not worrying about any political ramifications. Now, okay, China. You can't have free trade with China, which is fair trade, because China cheats. And you just can't do it if they're going to cheat. Now, if you get an Anwar Sadat or someone like that taking control of China who actually wants to see world peace, then they will say, okay, we will buy your American products and you can buy our Chinese products, and we'll see what happens. No tariffs. Yes, the Chinese toasters will be much cheaper than the American toasters, but maybe some Chinese people want to buy American cars, or maybe they want to buy American CD players or whatever the hell they use these days, or television sets. Maybe it's just higher quality. So this tariff thing could be alleviated quite easily if you just had totally free trade. But the Chinese cheat, they steal, and they go back on their word, so you can't trust them. So the best thing to do is not buy any Chinese products anywhere ever. And if Walmart suddenly becomes Gucci because you can't afford to buy the Chinese products from Walmart, then we will buy American. And if the manufacturing sector comes back to life in America and people are willing to work for $16 an hour and not $35 or $40 or $50 an hour to put together products, then that will be fine. But most likely they will be built by robots, and nobody will have any jobs in that sector. So it's a big problem, and it's going to play out over the next 5 to 10 years, and it's not going to be pretty. There's going to have to be a whole new paradigm of existence where people don't work and still have enough money to live in a house with food and a car. So we'll see how that happens. I'm looking for a book, probably buy it online, called Player Piano by Kurt Vonnegut. I want to reread that because it's about a society where there's only 3 sectors. There's the law enforcement, and there's people who build robots, and then there's the administrators. But there's no common worker who works in a factory, because that's all done by robots. I want to reread that, and then I'll give you a synopsis on that. But it's just an interesting concept, because robotics are going to be taking over, and if you don't have a very high engineering capability, and if you just are a mechanic, you just won't be necessary. The last thing that's happened in the recent past, which is kind of funny, it's like, don't go against Orangey. I don't know what the existential or the weird karmic situation is with his existence, but he's just in a position where if you go against him, it's going to come back and bite you on the butt. And it has to do with this prosecutor, Letitia James, I think it was. I don't know which one it was. There were so many. He was the one that wanted to convict him on fraud for claiming that his $150 million estate was only worth $15 million. and he was guilty of, paying back a loan that he took out. And I think he was pretty much found not guilty on that. But it turns out this prosecutor, who was salivating over prosecuting Orangey, has been found. There's evidence that she cheated on her mortgage applications. She took out one mortgage where she said her dad was her husband. She took out another mortgage where she lied about the size of the property for a better rate. And I think a few other mundane little details that she neglected. Well, I believe she said that her residence in Virginia was her main residence, which is against the law since she was the Attorney General of New York. So, if I was Judge Boasberg or Bozeman or whatever the hell his name is, Booger, I would be very careful about trying to bring back illegal aliens to the United States against the will of the Orangey administration. Because the pattern I've seen is that everybody that goes against Orangey ends up getting it badly. It's happened over and over and over again, and I'm glad to see it. Because they're liars and they're scum and they're cheaters, and they deserve the worst possible punishment that they can get, which up to and including incarceration forever. Now, the last subject is Van Hollen, a senator from Maryland, who glossed over the murder of one of his constituents by an illegal alien, a vicious murder, as we've now heard from the press conference today, is now flying and is now in El Salvador trying to expedite the extradition of a MS-13 gang member back into the United States who's illegal in the first place. Now that makes a lot of sense. I think his political career is very rosy. I'm sure he'll be reelected. But the media has gone on and on about how this stalwart father of two Marylander was mistakenly shipped to El Salvador, and now he's in that high-security prison. All the injustice of it all. He was a gang member. He was convicted as a gang member. He was deported years ago. They never deported him during the Petri dish administration. I forgot to talk about Petri dish, but he got married expedited a marriage due to his lawyers telling him if you are married to a U.S. citizen and have a couple kids, you'll probably look better on paper. Self-same wife filed charges against him, did a order to have him not be around her because he beat her. And this senator wants to go back to El Salvador to try to bring him back into the United States so he can be deported all over again. So that's a real good use of the money that we spend on taxes to have this senator fly down there. He should just stay down there. In fact, if he goes down there to the prison, maybe they should just shave his head and stick him in there. Just like you're an illegal alien in this country, so we're putting you in with the rest of the guys. That would be beautiful. But that's getting long, but I will tell you about Petri dish. Petri dish comes oozing out of the woodwork again to make a speech. And you could actually call it the greatest hits of Petri dish. Because first of all, he started speaking before the music stopped, so he was mumbling into the microphone. Then he starts talking about dignity. Everyone needs dignity. That's stuff we talked about back in 1963, 65. Everyone needs dignity. And then he's mumbling and fumbling about how it's so divisive now. It's so divisive because these Orangites, these mega fascists, have just made America horrible. In just 100 days, look how bad things are. Closed border, totally quiet on the border. Criminals being shipped out of the country. Tariffs being imposed so that there's a more fair trade agreement. Negotiations with different countries to try to end wars. And then Petri dish gets up and talks. So the Goppers are hoping that he talks some more, because the more he talks, the more we can be reminded of his idiocy. And it was pretty funny to watch. He was talking to a bunch of advocates for disabilities, and you only heard smatterings of applause here and there. They didn't even know what to applaud to. It was pathetic. It was Petri dish at his best. He had the whisperings and he had the yelling and clutching of his pearls. But there's still people that think he did a good job. It's beyond my comprehension to think that they are allowed to have a platform on any kind of a media outlet, because to say that Petri dish did anything good is to be a liar, and you're bordering on evil. But just the polar opposites of everything. Everything is the opposite of what it was 2 years ago, and I'm glad to see it, and I hope to see more. So I'll leave it there. It's been long enough, and have a good day and enjoy life. Bye.